Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the next session, Strategies for Teaching to Meet Financial Literacy Standards. We have three distinguished guests. I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. Hold on one second. Technology is absolutely wonderful when it works, but we work around it. So, my name is Susan Pestranson. I'll be your host or moderator for this session. After 35 years of teaching financial literacy, I am now a financial literacy and empowerment coordinator for Prince George's County Public Schools. And shout out to my district. We just made financial literacy a graduation requirement. So super excited about that. In this session, Strategies for Teaching to Meet Financial Literacy Standards, we have three distinguished guests. So let me tell you a little bit about each one of them. Our first guest is Mac Gardner. He is a certified financial planner practitioner and has served in the financial services industry for more than 20 years. His passion for financial literacy led him to publish his first book, Motivate Your Money. This book serves to simplify complex financial studies. Through this book, his ability to simplify complex financial concepts through stories and his Mac Nuggets, he helps his clients along their financial planning journey. He also developed a financial literacy platform for young children. The 4 Money Bears represents the 4 basic functions of money. He also serves as the founder and chief education officer of Finlit Tech, and the company's mission is building a bridge between finance and financial technology. Our second distinct is Mr. Luke Reynolds. Luke Reynolds, Chief of Outreach and Program Development at FDIC. Luke's team develops, enhances, and promotes FDIC's financial education initiatives. He and his team also conceptualized and implemented the Youth Savings Pilot and Adopt a School Pilot and its successor, the Youth Banking Network. He has also helped senior foreign leaders develop national financial education programs. His awards include being the FDIC Chairman's Individual Excellence and Chairman's Team Excellence Awards and Divisional Manager of the Year Award. Our third panelist is Ms. Jeanette Bennett. She is a senior economic education specialist for the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and she's based in Memphis. She is a national award levels of education, curriculum consultant and designer. She has written curriculum for various organizations, including the Arkansas Department of Education, South Dakota State University, Arkansas Farm Bureau, and the American Farm Bureau Federation. She is
Am I on? All right. Things are breaking up a little bit. First and foremost, thank you everyone for having me today, and thank you everyone for attending. My name is Mac Gardner. I am a certified financial planner. I am an author of the 4 Money Bears book, as well as Motivate Your Money. And I am also the founder and chief education officer of Finlit Tech. And what I would like to do today is share with you all A little bit about my journey with financial literacy. So, as mentioned before, my first book was written for adults, Motivate Your Money. I managed a few large institutions and started my own practice, and then decided, with the help of one of my clients, to write a book for young kids. And in writing this book, The Four Money Bears, we did a lot of research, and we found out that there was a Cambridge study done years ago that shows us that a child's connectivity with money actually starts by age 7. Um, Age 5, concepts can be understood, but by age 7, the child understands the concept of earning money and understands the various functions of money. And so we wrote the Four Money Bears book as a means to help children understand the process. But also, what we found was that we had a lot of parents who never received any sort of financial literacy or guidance, and they were having a hard time starting the conversation with their children. So the Four Money Bears book became the tool that parents use to start the conversation about money. So a few polling questions here. The first one is, what would you do with $100 bill? Now, this may seem, for the adults that are watching this, like a pretty common question. And, the responses that come to you could vary. But the story behind this question came about because as I was doing book readings to elementary school students, I was looking for a way to really capture their audience and capture the attention of these young folks. And so I said, you know what? I keep a $100 bill with me. I'll open this $100 bill and I'll ask these kids, hey, if I gave you this $100 bill, what would you do? And what it became was actually an experiment and an exercise in understanding that children are actually conditioned to spend from a very early age, because when these hands would go up in the air, the first thing that they would respond is they would buy something. They would either, buy Pokemon cards or buy, sneakers or buy something along those lines. And then maybe one child would raise their hand and say, yeah, I would, save it and put in a piggy bank. So that really was eye-opening to me. And I've done readings in various states and across the country. And it's a really great example. So if you're ever sitting around and you have a young child, ask them what they would do with a $100 bill, and you'd be surprised to hear what the response is. The other question here is a polling question. How much do you think financial illiteracy cost Americans in 2018? It was over $370 billion. What that broke to was a little bit over $1,000 per person. And it's due to, overdraft fees, high interest rates, not understanding their finances. And so financial literacy is costing Americans a lot. As of 2020, that number is over $400 billion. And question number 3 is, where does the U.S. rank in terms of percentage of financial literate adults? We are, one of the largest, if not one of the greatest economies in the world, but sadly, we rank number 14 in the world when it comes to financial literate adults. So those are a couple of the questions I'd like to bring out at the beginning of a presentation, just to share with folks why we're doing what we're doing and how big of an issue that we're trying to tackle. Okay, so for those of you who can see me, if you still see me on the screen, but the Four Money Bears book, the idea again was to be able to sit down, for a child to sit down with a parent, right? And to understand that there are only 4 things you can do with money, right? Spend it, save it, invest it, or give it away. Those things aren't going to change. So what we did in the book is, if you flip through it, the book is actually the story about me and my family in our house. I'm Papa Bear, my wife is Mama Bear, and the kids are the baby bears. And so what we do is we want to show kids there's pros and cons to each function of money, right? So the pro to spending is, guess what? When you spend money, you have nice things, you have this feeling of accomplishment, look good for others. So there's pros to spending money. The cons to spending money, though, is if you spend everything, there's no money for savings, you can't invest, and you can't give. So the idea, again, through this book is to show both sides of the coin when it comes to each function of money. Then we flip the page and we go to Save a Bear. And so Save a Bear, again, the pros to saving money. You always have cash when you need it. It's a good habit to start off with, right? And it's a safe way to grow your money. And I emphasize safe there. as a means of growing your money. The cons to saving money. Well, if you were to look at the book, you'd see Saver Bear. Saver Bear, she hoards cash. She puts it in a piggy bank, in a drawer, under a mattress. But if all you do is save, you can't have nice things. So you're not buying anything. You don't have anything to invest, and you won't be sharing with others. So that's Saver Bear, pros and cons. This is interesting. Here's where we introduce children to the concept of investing. And I think a lot of times either parents may not understand the concept that much, or they assume that their children won't understand the concept of investing. But in our research, we found that the children actually do understand the concept of investing and the difference between investing and saving. So the pros to investing money is that it's the best way to increase wealth over time. Okay. It's a way to own business, own real estate, right? Through stocks, bonds, ETF, things along those lines, or actually owning hard land. And it allows for generational wealth. All right. Now, what are the cons to investing? And this is important. This is when we start explaining to a child the concept of risk, because investing involves risk. It can be a lot of risk, it can be a little risk, but that's what makes investing totally different from saving. An analogy I like to use is that $100 bill. If you save it, put it in the bank, and a year from now you'll have $100. With this interest rate environment, maybe 100 and a couple cents. But if you invest it, right, a year from now you could have $150, or you could have $50. But over time, as I see the third bullet point, it takes time and knowledge to be successful. All right, so that's Investor Bear. And then the last one is Giver Bear. And so with Giver Bear, what we're doing is we're trying to explain to children that they're pros to giving money. So it's a way to take care of those who need help. It helps your community. It helps church, charities, and schools. All right, so those are the pros. And the cons to giving is, if you give everything away, there's no money for your own personal needs. Sadly, people will take advantage of you, can't take advantage of you if they know that you're a giver and you're a very giving person. And of course, there's no opportunities to either save or invest. Right? So as a parent is reading the Four Money Bears book to their child, they're talking about the pros and cons to each side. And then what they will eventually come to is this page that talks about the power of budgeting. Right? And what we want the child to understand is that all four of these bears need to work together. And if you follow these four rules, which were actually rules that I talk about in my first book, Motivate Your Money, I talk about the 5 steps of financial success. You have to plan accordingly, spend cautiously, save diligently, invest wisely, and give generously. Right? So those are the 4 rules of the Four Money Bears. Right? And when they work together, they create something called a budget. And all a budget is, because sometimes a budget has a sort of negative connotation, but all a budget really is are rules for your money, right? And everything needs rules. If you're a sports fan, if you're a football fan, there's 4 quarters to a game, and you score a touchdown at 6 points, so on and so forth. And who has the most points at the end? So everything needs. And you need to give your money rules, and that's all a budget is. And when the 4 bears work together, they learn from each other, and they work together to sort of form these healthy financial habits from an early age. And then these habits become healthy financial behaviors, which become healthy financial traits over time. And the earlier we can start these behaviors and this awareness, the better it is for the child, and the better it is for the household, and the better it is for the community. All right. So here, for those who are either advisors or interested in financial literacy, one of the questions that we ask is do you currently offer that? Right. And then we'll ask, if you do offer it, how often do you offer it as part of your practice? And then we have lots of different things. Interestingly enough, from a financial advisor perspective, it's usually a 60% that say no, and 40% will say yes. And then for question number 5, it's typically once a year that gets the highest response for those who do offer it. And I think financial advisors are a great resource for financial literacy for people young and old. And we work with a lot of financial advisors throughout the country that utilize the Four Money Bears book to spread more financial literacy and more financial education at a younger age. All right, next here, investing versus saving at the child level. I talked about this a little bit. This is an important concept that if we can get across to a child. One story I like to share is, if a child says, "Hey, I like if you gave me that $100, I would love to buy a pair of Under Armour sneakers." And they say, "Wow, okay, that's great." And then I'll ask them, I said, "Well, did you know that you can actually purchase the company that makes those sneakers?" And then little minds start turning and they said, "Really?" And then, yeah, there's a company. And if you own shares of that company, you actually benefit from all those people that buy Under Armour sneakers. And then my little minds start turning, and then they really start to realize, okay, they have options. Because I think for a lot of young people, uh, when they hear about financial literacy and they hear about financial conversations, it's really about spending and saving. But I think if we can introduce these conversations and these stories about investing and how it works, it can be very beneficial to young people. I like to say that all we are at the end of our days is a collection of stories. So let's share some of these really impactful and informative stories about investing with our kids. Universal rules of thumb. Here I talk about debit versus credit. This is an important concept. We are living in a more and more digital economy where folks aren't using cash anymore. So it's important. And a good way I like to explain a credit card versus debit card. A debit card, if you go to a store and you use your debit card and it costs $20, you need to make sure that you've got $20 in your bank account. Because if you don't, the debit card isn't going to work. So when you're using a debit card, that's your money, right? When you're using a credit card, you're utilizing someone else's money. And if you're utilizing someone else's money, they're probably going to want interest. They're going to charge you for using their money. So that's the big difference between a credit card and debit card. The rule of 72 is a powerful rule. A lot of times young people don't understand how long it takes for money to grow. And so the rule of 72 is a great rule that shares how long it takes for a certain amount of money to double. So if you're fortunate to have your money sitting in a savings account and you're fortunate to get a 1% rate of return, there's not a lot of places that are providing that. But if you utilize the rule of 72, that $100, 72 divided by 1 is 72. That $100 will double to 200 in 72 years. All right, that's a long period of time. Versus if you were to invest in some sort of portfolio that, let's just say, averages or gets you 10% rate of return, 72 divided by 10, that money or portfolio will double in 7.2 years. So it's a great way to explain to young people how long it takes money to grow and the power of the rate of return that you're getting. Compound interest is another very good concept I like to share with young folks, and really teaching them that your money can work for you better than you can work for your money, right? I think Albert Einstein says that it's one of the eighth wonder of the world. It's just having your money grow and compound over time is one of the best ways for your money to grow and for you to take advantage of time and interest. And then the 50, 30, 20 budget. Here we're talking about 50% of your budget should go to needs, 30% to wants, and then 20% to savings. And then you could even split that 20% up and say maybe put 10% into some sort of IRA or 401k, and then the other 10% some sort of after-tax investment portfolio. So these are universal rules of thumb that we like to share with young folks to get them more aware, and again, sharing these impactful stories. We wanted to make sure that the Four Money Bears book not only told the story, but actually had tools that parents could sit down with a child and learn some things. So in every copy of the Four Money Bears book, we have these worksheets, and it tells a little bit about tools and tips for spending, for saving, for investing, and for giving. All right, so every copy of the book has this in there, a little activity area where a parent and the child can sit down and have these conversations. And then the other thing too is at the end of every copy of the book, we have a budget that covers a full year, so the parent can sit down with the child. One of the questions that we get often is, should we use cash to give our child an allowance, or should we, use some other form to kind of keep track. So what we did, if you go to our website, www.thefourmoneybears.com, we actually offer bear bucks. So you can print off bear bucks. We also offer the budget worksheet that allows you to go on there. And so you can pay your children in bear bucks. And then if they have a certain amount of bear bucks over time, they can turn that in for cash. But we definitely wanted to be able to provide some tools and resources to parents to really start that conversation and really help their kids start some healthy financial habits early in life. So you can learn more about our mission there at thefourmoneybears.com. You can learn also about our mission to build a bridge between financial literacy and financial technology through Finlit Tech. We are currently developing an app, the first of its kind children's financial literacy app called Berryville, where a child will be able to learn entrepreneurship. They will also be able to learn money management skills at the same time. And we're utilizing what's called the TAT method. So we're going to be able to teach, analyze what the child is doing through various quizzes and little challenges. And then we're going to be able to track over time the child's success. And the platform is going to be able to be used by either parents or by teachers. So we're really, really passionate about this space. We truly believe that it's a formula. Financial wellness is really a formula. It's financial literacy plus, which is the education, plus financial capability, which are the tools. So we say Finlit plus FinTech is what it will equal financial wellness. And so, thanks again, everyone, for allowing me to share a little bit about what we're doing and the tools that we're developing to promote financial literacy and financial education at a very early age.
Good afternoon, everyone, or I guess good morning still, everyone. My name is Luke Reynolds at FDIC, and I'm going to talk about some of our new resources that can help promote economic inclusion. We launched a campaign this year, our Get Banked campaign, designed to encourage people outside the banking system to develop open up a low-cost bank account. There are videos on our new webpage, radio ads, as well as graphics that can be shared, as well as tools for consumers to use, such as a checklist to compare account offerings and tips for managing a new account. I'm also going to highlight what's new in the MoneySmart family of products. It's a quick refresher. MoneySmart consists of curriculum for everyone of all ages, as well as small businesses. There are materials that you can use to train others, as well as materials that people can learn on their own. This is MoneySmart's 20-year anniversary. It's hard to believe MoneySmart's been around for 20 years, but it's our 20th anniversary. Our target audience continues to be people with low and moderate income, who don't have bank account relationships, who may be establishing their financial lives, who want to improve their financial situations. These are ors, these are not ands. So target audience includes people with low and moderate income. It also includes people who may be establishing their financial lives. MoneySmart is not the curriculum to teach about investments or to talk about retirement planning. MoneySmart's the curriculum to lay the foundation that people can use to benefit from other resources and tools that can help them improve their financial well-being. MoneySmart for Young People was updated again this year. We redesigned it to be more user-friendly. We use feedback from educators across the country to inform this process. We also made our parent caregiver guides available on our website more easily so that parents and caregivers can access them, or you can refer parents and caregivers to our parent guides. What the parent guides do is they give parents and caregivers ideas of how to help their young people learn more about money. So there's sample book list, sample conversation starters, list of website resources that may be useful, vocabulary, and just some other general advice for parents. Money Smart for Adults is our flagship product that was updated 2 years ago. Money Smart for Adults is an instructor-led curriculum that has 14 modules that can be taught alone or independently. We start out with a discussion of financial values, since financial values really shape your financial choices and decisions, and then go through the whole full spectrum of basic personal finance, from spending and savings plan, to credit reports, to borrowing money, to protecting your identity, to making housing decisions, as well as a module on disasters, financial preparation and recovery. Money Smart for older adults, we updated just this year, just this summer, to include more information on romance scams. The romance scams are growing. They're growing among all segments of the population, but particularly for older adults. So the materials now include information to help people prevent and identify and address romance scams. This is a sample PowerPoint from our older adult curriculum. It basically explains what a romance scam is, and just a quick refresher, that's when someone may approach someone online and pretend to develop a relationship with them, or develop some sort of relationship with them, and then turn around and ask for money because of personal crises or whatnot. These can happen online or in person, but during the pandemic, when people were more isolated, they really took off. Money Smart for Small Business is our curriculum for educators to teach about small business issues. This is a very specialized curriculum. We developed it with the Small Business Administration. It's really designed to be taught by someone who has some business background or banking background, since the topics relate to small businesses and go beyond just basic personal finance. We do have train-the-trainer materials to help people get more familiar with how to teach Money Smart for Small Business. I'll note we have train-the-trainer materials for all of our resources, but I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later. I'll talk about those now. So we have videos we have train-the-trainer videos. So for example, if you're looking to just begin teaching the Money Smart for Adults module on credit scores, you can watch a short video. It'll introduce you to that module and make you a little bit better prepared to more quickly pick up and teach the module. We also offer quarterly webinars. Those are designed for people to learn more about the entire Money Smart family of products. And we have a guide to presenting Money Smart for Adults, which is you can think of as a mini train-the-trainer course in a booklet. If you don't have time to attend a train-the-trainer webinar, or don't have time to watch a video, or prefer not to watch a video, you prefer to read, this is a short guide that gives you tips on how to engage people with disabilities, gives you tips on how to be a more effective classroom instructor, gives you tips on how to pick different modules for different topics. Like maybe you're teaching to a group of immigrants to the country. It'll tell you which modules in Money Smart may be a good course to offer. And then we have a special standalone supplement, Scenarios for Financial Inclusion. These feature 4 people with disabilities facing a financial choice. There's no right or wrong answer. The goal is to foster a discussion among people on a webinar or workshop as to the thinking process they might go through, or the character might go through when facing these financial choices. Our podcast, our Money Smart Podcast Network, They're not our most popular product, but some people do like podcasts, so they do exist. We're really proud to announce a new online learning game that replaces our legacy CBI product, which is rather old. It's called How Money Smart Are You? How Money Smart Are You? We invested in a significant amount of time and resources into developing this, into testing it across the country, into getting feedback from educators, feedback from groups who represent persons with disabilities and others. And this tool is designed for people to be able to either play a game. The modules align with Money Smart for Adults. There are 14 games. The games are, I'm not going to read through them all because they're similar to what I just talked about for Money Smart for Adults. But each game is broken into rounds. So maybe you just want to learn about saving for unexpected expenses. You can just pick that round and go through it. You can earn a certificate of completion for completing each of the games. Certificates of completion are a tool that some banks and some organizations use as part of their program. Like maybe they'll waive a late fee if their client takes a Money Smart online training, or maybe there's a first-time homebuyer program where completing the Money Smart training is a requirement. Maybe there's also universities. We know of one professor who offers it as a freshman course. So these certificates of completion are valuable for organizations that require use of Money Smart. And then, of course, some people just like to have certificates of completion anyway with their name on it. You're not required to get a certificate of completion. You can play without having an account, but we know that's popular. Each of the rounds features interactive learning. It's a game show format. So you'll see Account Detective, Comparison Engine. These are some of the example games, Combination Lock, that engage our audience. And then in addition to the games, there are resources. So there's a summary of the key takeaways from each of the games, and then tools. Many of these are worksheets that are interactive, worksheets that you can use to develop a budget, worksheets that you can use to comparison shop for a banking product. We really encourage you to check out both the game and the resources. And then we have the glossary. So what we do is we distribute Money Smart. We provide training to those who need training. We can sometimes link banks and trainers together and highlight promising ways to use Money Smart. So our model is really, we train instructors who can in turn train participants. We do have a direct-to-participant tool through our online learning product. Money Smart can be used in any number of ways, such as in schools, social service organizations. Sometimes Money Smart may be mentioned on a website with a link to help people more quickly access it. Money Smart News is our monthly publication. It used to be quarterly, but this year we started publishing it monthly. That gives financial educators tips. We try to always include a success story. What a success story does is it highlights where Money Smart was used and the person's experience with it, and any tips or advice they might have for others based on their own experience. During the pandemic, we have highlighted a number of ways that organizations are training virtually with Money Smart. Organizations I've talked to have reported that they've had better engagement with their virtual trainings than they did with their in-person trainings, which I find to be very interesting. And then we welcome submissions. So if you use Money Smart, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear more your experience and tips you have for us, as well as tips for others. If you're curious of where to get started with Money Smart, I'd encourage you to visit our success story library. This is really an idea bank. Maybe you're looking to engage youth. You can read success stories and get ideas for potential partners, potential techniques for instruction. Like one bank had their participants develop essays to apply the knowledge from their training to their personal life. This is a word cloud. You can see we have a lot of stories featuring youth and adults as well as general, but then we also have other categories as well: small business, homeownership, military, older adults, and persons with disabilities. It's free to join our Money Smart Alliance, and if you join the Alliance, you get to participate on quarterly knowledge sharing calls. It's easier to ask a question of FDIC staff if you have a question about Money Smart program, and you have the opportunity to be listed on the FDIC's website if that's something you want to do. In order to join an alliance, you need to be using Money Smart, and you need to fit one of several basic criteria. You can learn more online. I'm just going to leave you with the idea that there's 5 principles for effective financial education. This is from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's graphic. So I must give full credit to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for the ideas in this slide. But the general idea is that and I think many of us, I think all of us, or many or all of us, are familiar with these principles, perhaps using other words or other ways of expressing the concept. Knowing who you're serving, providing actionable, relevant, and timely information. So, for example, you're probably not going to teach a high school student about foreclosure prevention strategies. The idea is you're looking to connect upcoming decisions, perhaps, with concrete information that may be helpful in informing that decision. Improving skills, being skill-based. You can do that with workshops. Building on motivation. Some organizations have had good experience with peer-to-peer approaches to delivering training, to engaging people through training. It could be through a buddy system. It could be another way. And then making it easy to make good decisions. And this is a value of banks and nonprofits working together, particularly when engaging audiences without banking relationships, because of the full range of tools that many banks provide. You can learn more by visiting our website, fdic.gov/education, or fdic.gov/MoneySmart, whichever one's easier for you to remember. From there, you can learn more about everything I talked about. And I'm out of time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Our third presenter is having some technical difficulties, but she did provide us with a Zoom recording. So we will play that now, and following the recording, we'll have a short question and answer session.
I'm Jeanette Bennett with the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis Memphis branch, and it's a pleasure to be with you today as part of the annual conference, and I am delighted to share with you something about our standard personal finance curriculum. Personal finance is somewhat like the daily news because it changes so often. And before I continue, we are required to say that everything I say today may or may not be representative of the Federal Reserve System. And with that out of the way, we can continue to the presentation of personal finance curriculum being like a story. I was told by a very good presenter that people remember things best when they're told in a story format. So I thought, well, what better way to present personal finance than as a story? It begins once upon a time. Imagine living 100 years ago when there were no televisions, no microwaves, no iPhones, no laptops, credit cards, ATMs, Radio had just started. There were no billboards, no email, few telephones, no social security numbers, and for sure, no internet. So as the story begins, we see that in today's world, it's much different. We started several years ago working with teachers on a face-to-face training in Mississippi for teaching personal finance. That's how it began. And we were happy with it. But things change, just like the daily news. COVID messed that plan up. So what we had to do was design a way to teach it as a course online. And we started, and we're so happy and pleased with what happened that we decided to turn it into other people besides Mississippi can use it. So we made it into a standard personal finance curriculum. We did this by organization through the National Standards for Financial Literacy. The national standards have 6 standards. But you notice on this list there's 7. That's because we added one. We added decision making, thinking that at the basis of all the other standards, there was decision making, and that could not be overlooked. So as we start looking at a standard personal finance curriculum, remember that it is designed around 7 standards. Everything is included that the teacher needs to know, the talking points, suggested lessons to teach to that standard. We even included a glossary of terms and an appendix that categorized other resources according to the standards. So it's a full curriculum ready to use for any teacher across the country, even though the story started in Mississippi. The benchmarks that we wrote for decision making include 2 very important things here with the opportunity cost. So whether we're looking at buying, spending, saving, insuring, they all address an opportunity cost. When you make a decision, there is a consequence. So I know you can't read these 2 pages I have here on the slide, but the intent is not for you to read it, but for you to see that the table of contents is 2 pages. So this is quite comprehensive in nature. And this is like a close-up of how Unit 1 is organized with lessons that include online modules, as well as print lessons and additional resources. The teacher is given a description of the resource and where to find it. Now, this is a clip from the appendix that shows that many, many, many resources have been organized according to the format, like an article, what the name of the resource is, what the website is, and how it fits into the standards. So these are optional choices that teachers can make as they teach. You may be saying, where do you find this? The website's at the bottom, stlouisfed.org/education, and this is what you get. Over here on this side, for teachers and students, find teacher resources. If you click on find teacher resources and type in a standard personal finance curriculum, you're going to get it. It's all ready to use. I'd like to show you one example of a resource that we recommend for both buying and spending decisions and decision making. This one's on advertising. It's one of my favorite ones because it's so exciting and it changes all the time, and it's in front of us every day. And it just makes an exciting way to teach so many of the standards. The Page One Economics Focus on Finance is written to address timely topics that are interesting now, currently. So when advertising was written, we zoomed in on, first of all, we didn't have resources to address advertising. And second of all, how it is so important in our daily lives. And I like to use this particular one because it starts with a Memphis, Tennessee bit of history, because advertising is so important with the grocery store. You know, think about the packaging, the placement on the shelves, the colors, the cartoons, the gimmicks. They didn't used to be that way. Once upon a time, consumers didn't make their own choices. But starting in 1916, Piggly Wiggly started the first self-service grocery store in Memphis. And from that, we know how advertising took off in the food market. Another thing in that particular article is about the Super Bowl. This is exciting because every year lots of people look forward to watching the Super Bowl just for the advertisements. Those advertisements are very costly. Would you like to take a guess as to how much a 30-second commercial cost for the 2017 Super Bowl? $5.02 million for 30 seconds. Now that proves that decision making for your dollars is very important. So as we look at the 7 National Standards Plus decision making that we've chosen to use for this curriculum, we'd like to brag a little bit and say that this very year we received the Excellence in Financial Literacy Award for this curriculum. And we would like to thank you for letting us share it with you. I told you that many of the resources that are in this curriculum are online so that you can assign students using an online format. To do that, you go once again to stlouisfed.org/education, sign up for an account. When you get your free account, you can set up a classroom, put your kids in there, assign resources for them to complete, track their progress. And one of the biggest problems you're going to have is deciding which resource to assign. But remember, you have the standard personal finance curriculum that gives you suggestions so that every standard is covered in a course. Notice right here, advertising dollars and decisions. That is the article I just now referred to, and it comes in both middle school and high school, college level. And all you have to do is click that little plus and you're going to be able to add it to your classroom. So once again, thank you for letting us share this with you. And as every story ends with the end, please know that this story is really not ending. It's just beginning with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
So welcome to all of our distinguished guests. We're going to see if we can get Ms. Bennett in here as well, at least on audio. to cover the technical issues. But we have a few questions that we want to pose to our panelists. And if you have any, please go ahead and put them in the chat as well. So my first question I wanted to send out to Luke and also to Ms. Bennett. Just recently, the Jumpstart Foundation, as Jumpstart Coalition, and the National Council on Economic Education has updated national financial literacy standards. So has the FDIC aligned their curriculum with these standards, or what standards were they aligned to?
So we aligned Money Smart for young people with the Jumpstart standards that previously existed. So we're going to need to update our alignment tables. We also aligned to the CEE as well as to the Common Core standards, which are adopted generally under different names in most states.
So yeah, there seem to be a lot of different standards floating around. It's kind of hard to keep up with them. But it's good to know that we're all focused in the right direction. We want good financial literacy education for all of our students. Jeanette, do you have, are you with us yet? Checking to see. Okay, then I'll direct a question to Mac. Your books are absolutely adorable. I really love them. Why did you write the For Money Bears book?
Great question. So I have my practice in Houston. My first book, Motivate Your Money, again, was written for adults. And I was working with a client. She happened to be on the board of an organization called Jack and Jill, which is a non-for-profit organization for women of color and kids. And she said, Mac, I love the messages that you have in Motivate Your Money. Could you maybe create something for kids? And I said, well, how young? And she said, well, we both had elementary school kids at the time. She said, well, what about elementary school kids? And so that really was the genesis of the For Money Bears. It was a teacher, it was a client who was looking to give back to her community, knew that it's important for children to understand money. There are tons of overlooked and underserved communities where financial literacy it's not even an afterthought. So that's how the For Money Bears idea came about. I was able to take some concepts about spending cautiously, saving diligently, investing wisely, giving generously. And every kid loves bears. What kid doesn't love bears?
Absolutely.
And one other thing too to make note, I intentionally made 2 of the bears boys, 2 of the bears girls. I intentionally made them all different colors of bears as a overt nod to the need for more diversity and inclusion in not just the education space, but in the advisory space as well. We need to have more folks understanding that this is a career path, right? That people need help with their finances, and that it's a very noble career path to walk, to be able to help other people manage their finances.
Awesome. So what age do you think it's appropriate to start talking to kids about money?
As early as possible. Age 5 is typically when kids understand, they're getting coins. And interestingly enough, kids are still the elementary school age demographic actually still have money. I mean, you still give them dollars, you still give them coins to play with. So we find that starting the conversation as early as age 5 is beneficial. As I mentioned earlier, all we are at the end of our days is a collection of stories. My 3 children, they will hear stories about an IRA. They will hear stories about a 401k and savings accounts and mortgages and so on and so forth, interest rates, because I just happen to be in that profession. But a vast majority of children will not get those stories. And so that's why we think it's so important for the For Money Bears to be that sort of on-ramp to financial education. So at least they understand those first 3 basic building blocks of spending, saving, investing, and giving. And once they know those options, they can go out there and make more informed decisions as they get older.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and I want to direct this one to Luke. The Money Smart materials are just have really expanded, at least since the last time I looked at them. They look really fantastic. But is it possible for me as a teacher, if I wanted to modify the Money Smart materials and use them, is that possible?
Yes, there are no copyright restrictions on Money Smart or other intellectual property restrictions on Money Smart, so you're free to modify and adapt the materials to your needs. We only ask that if there are material modifications, that then our name comes off because it's your product, not ours. So long way of saying yes, you can modify.
Okay, so our session goes to 12:25, so I believe we're right there. I want to thank you so much for these great resources. How awesome these are. Financial education is number one in my book. That's what everybody needs, and that's the source of pretty much all wellness that I know of. So really appreciate your time, sharing your materials. Thank you to SFEPD for sponsoring this session. And we'll look forward to networking a little bit later in the day.
Thank you. Journey continues.
Thank you.